Hi, this is Jolynn from Wild Pony Eventing, and we're here today with Stefanie Skidmore. I want to take a moment first and ask anybody who's watching this to please take a moment and hit the subscribe button. It really helps us with the algorithm to get our videos out to more people. Stefanie, hi.
Hey, Jolynn, how are you? How are you?
I'm good, thanks. Can you tell us a little bit about your horse background and how you got into Mustangs?
I can. I am from Germany originally, and I started riding primarily Shetland ponies at the time when I was 8 over in Germany, and I lived there until I was 24. I took lessons. I rode at first primarily English in various European countries, and then got into Western when that became accessible where I lived. Moved here when I was full-time when I was 24, and then got into, for a while I led a dude string. That was very exciting, and then started helping people with their various horses and issues with those horses, and got a little bit frustrated with that in the sense that there was so much baggage. There was so much baggage that these horses had. There was so much baggage that these people had with their horses. And I just got to where I kind of wanted to see what it would be like to work with a clean slate. And right around that time, I started talking to people about Mustangs, and people that were training Mustangs started popping up on my social media. And I was like, well, I want to look into and see what that would look like. And so I did, and became a tip trainer. And that was, I picked up my first horse in March of 2017. And here we are.
Okay. And you have some personal Mustangs as part of your Mustang Outreach. Can you
I
tell
do.
us a little bit about them?
Yeah, we have, what do you want me to show the pictures right now?
Yes.
All righty. So let's see here. Let me share the screen. There we are. So can you see them okay?
Yep.
Alrighty. So the little Dunmere here on the left, that was actually the first Mustang, the first branded Mustang I ever gentled. I had worked with reservation Mustangs before. She is the one that I picked up in March of 2017. She was going to be adopted out, and I kept her. That is Lacey. Lacey's turning 8 this year, and she's amazing. She is baited. She is actually facility born in Canyon City to a Divide Basin mare.
Okay.
So she didn't know she was facility born, though. She was wilded in some of my wild born ones. She was pretty cool. And then the big guy next to her, the big sorrel, that is Tiny. Tiny is Salt Wells, Wyoming. And these are just some pictures from this fall, just kind of doing what we do. We do
How tall is Tiny?
Pack trips. He's 15-1 and some change.
Okay.
So
she's a pony.
She's like 14-1, yeah.
Okay.
She thinks she's 16 hands. And being gated, she shuffles right past everybody else.
Wow.
So this is another one of our pack trips this year. Lacey on the left and then Tiny on the right, and he was the pack horse on these trips. So in between, packing in and out camp, he just kind of gets to hang out and tag along. So that's why he looks pretty, he's just hanging out. So this was a ride we did this summer, just playing in the water. That's again Tiny on the left and Lacey on the right. And then we just added a new kid, and this is Petrie. Petrie, as in, yes, she's super cute. She is a little coming 3-year-old Devil's Garden filly, not branded, directly from the Forest Service. So we have started partnering with them. I got a delivery of 10 in the summer, and I retained her to add to our herd, and she's starting to get useful. This is Petrie here on the right, next to my old mare, learning how to push cows just this past week.
And what made you choose to keep her?
I always tell people don't go with love at first sight. And I didn't totally do that. That's what I claim. They sent us 13, 3 for another organization, and 10 for me. And the holler was late, the way these things go.
Yeah.
And so I was by myself at night sorting, and thank goodness they had the yearlings separate and they had the mamas and the babies separate. But I was standing there sorting 8 brown horses by myself that all looked the same. I had
Yeah.
seen 2 pictures of each, and I thought I had it all figured out, and they looked like a mating ball of snakes. It was nothing but this brown moving mess. And there was, out of that mess, looks this little head, with those little bug eyes and those little dragon ears and hair going in every which direction. She's looking at me like, what do you want? And I was like, oh, I love you. And she actually wasn't on my list. This was not my horse. So Jim's Great Escape, they were getting the others, and I begged and pleaded with Michelle for 3 days. And she thought I was nuts. And I traded her the mare that I was going to keep, who was a perfectly normal, well-adjusted, very pretty, tall, well-built, friendly little 2-year-old mare. And I got this funny looking, naughty little broom-tailed, bug-eyed, just, she questions authority. That's what she lives to do.
Yeah.
And I love that about her. I like a gritty mare. I like a mare that asks questions. I like a mare that's tough.
Yeah.
And she looks like, and she's got the draft horse booty, and she just looks like she's gonna be big. And I need and I want a horse that will pack and ride in the mountains, but also that I can work Mustangs off of, because that's something that I want to delve more into, is work horses from horseback. And Lacey is, a tiny little ball of fire,
Yeah.
but she's only tiny and little.
Yeah.
And so, if she has a big 15-hand horse pulling on her, she ain't going to be able to hold that. And
Right.
so this one here string tests to 15 hands, and she's pretty stout. And so I'm
Okay.
hoping that with her attitude and that size, she's going to be able to do that.
Okay.
And
So,
she's all attitude.
okay. So there's 3 or 4?
There are 4 total.
Okay.
The gray is an honorary Mustang. She came from a wolf sanctuary many, many years ago. She was going to be food. And every once in a while she gets reminded of that. But I figured, poor old thing, she has another year or 2 left, and now we're, 13 years and counting, and here she is. So that's
How old is she?
I don't know. The vet told me 10 years ago she's in her 20s, and the last time they looked in her mouth, she said, well, she's in her 20s, so she's not aging, so she's in her 20s.
I like that non-aging trick. I want it.
Yeah, I'm trying to work on that too. I'm haven't figured out how yet.
Okay.
So.
All right. So, and this is all part of Mustang Outreach, your nonprofit, correct?
That is correct.
Can you tell us about that?
I can. So Wild Horse Outreach and Advocacy was kind of born out of my desire to not have to feel like I am, cranking out tip horses and throwing them at the first person that came along and, wanted them. And so I would sit there and I would take my time and, painstakingly match these horses with adopters, which, financially was not particularly bright. And, and I started doing this, on the side. And I have friends here locally that have become just wonderful supporters of us, that then said, you know what, you really ought to do this as a nonprofit. It'll open doors for you, and you're not making a profit. And
Yeah.
and so they actually helped me set this up. And so Wild Horse Outreach and Advocacy is sort of a multi-tiered um, organization where we do tip training, although I have
Mhm.
picked up a tip horse in a little over a year because they've been really, really hard to come by here in Colorado.
Really?
Oh yeah, I can tell you a little bit more about that, but it's not been easy. Actually, cat incoming, just so you know. Um,
Okay.
um, so what we also do is gentling horses for individuals, people that say, hey, I have adopted this Mustang and I'm stuck.
Right.
Or I have adopted this Mustang, I haven't picked it up yet, and I know I can't do wild. Will you gentle it? And then I pick it up from you. We also gentle for organizations, kind of that same thing. Either they get
Mhm.
it home and they get in it over their ski tips, or they want us to pick it up and gentle it for them, and then they take it
Mhm.
home once it is gentle. Or what we have been doing a lot of here lately is kill pen Mustangs, where
Ah,
people find them at kill pens, and they're either traumatized beyond getting anywhere near them, or they just really don't know anything.
yeah.
And then we come in and we gentle them, and either we find them homes or we send them home. And
Okay.
we've worked with reservation Mustangs. We've had the Devil's Garden horses, so all kinds of Mustangs. So we do that. We also teach. I do workshops. I have done some, offsite at people's facilities teaching,
Mhm.
trying to get people to, better connect with their Mustang. And I also create content on social media and for our website with the idea of just educating people and saying, hey, I want it to be sort of a mix of inspirational and educational, in the sense that I don't want it to all be dry and negative.
Mhm.
I want people to see how cool and how awesome it can be, while at the same time also being really honest, in the sense
Mhm.
that this is not always a cakewalk, and they are not all um the same. Like, you
Right.
can't really just pull one out of a hat and project onto them all the things that you want them to be.
Right.
So that's, and then different training styles and different personalities, I try to highlight all of that.
Mhm.
So that's what we do.
Okay. So tell me a little bit, backtracking to your last comment, about being a tip trainer and tip horses being hard to come by. Tell us a little bit about what's going on.
Well, I am located about an hour north of Canyon City, and
Okay.
Canyon City is the Colorado holding facility. And interestingly enough, that's where the BLM leases the property from the Department of Corrections.
Um,
And so, in other words, a prison, not just one prison, it's a prison complex. I don't know, there's
right.
something back there. And so you can't just, like, for them to do events there is a huge ordeal. So what they have started doing with COVID, when it became all but impossible, they started hauling them offsite, but that's also, an issue, planning and organization, and it's additional stress for the horses. So it's just not something where you just go and schedule an appointment at a facility and say, hey, what do you have that's tip eligible? I want to come get them.
Right.
That's, really where we're at. And they got the Sandwash Basin horses, so they've been busy with them, and doing those online adoptions. They got, I'm sure you've heard of that, the West Douglas horses got so sick last year, so they were
Yeah.
quarantined for months. So that happened and caused sort of a backlog in, all the things that needed to get done. We have plenty of horses down there, we just can't get to them.
Wow.
So,
Okay.
and we're working on, I'm, talking to the BLM, we're working on changing that, on, making, tip horses more accessible again, but,
Mhm.
one foot in front of the other.
Yeah. Okay. When you mentioned you do some clinics, what kind of training do you do at the clinics?
I do gentling workshops, and so
Okay.
far we're working on expanding that. So far it has been private and semi-private gentling workshops. And so I can really tailor it to what somebody wants to learn, because people have
Right.
been sort of coming at that from all different angles, all equally valid, but really amazingly different. And we just
Mhm.
kind of, we go over, okay, what are you here to learn?
Uh-huh.
And that's what we do. And I tend to have, sort of a variety of horses here. What do I have out there right now? I've got 8 training horses here right now, from 3 years old to 13 is
Mhm.
the oldest. And all kinds of personalities. They are at all different levels of gentling, so people kind of get a chance to, try their hand at doing things with horses at very different levels. And also the people that say, hey, I think I'd like to adopt a Mustang one day, they also get to see how different they can be, and sort of what personality and what level of being really calm or being a little bit more spirited they resonate with.
Right.
So that's, and I have done, we do, if somebody says to me, hey, I have a Mustang at home, and, we're getting ready to start him under saddle or restart him under saddle, and I really want to ground drive, well, then I pull out, one of the ambassadors that ground drives, and then we
Mhm.
ground, I've done
Okay.
things as simple as, somebody has trouble lunging their horse at home, or have a horse that doesn't fly spray. So we look at that, and it turns out that it's not an issue of the fly spray or an issue of the other horse, but it's an issue of, you're approaching it funny. And so we can work through all of these things
Okay.
at a gentling workshop, even if that's not maybe primarily gentling.
Right. Can you talk a little bit about your philosophy and your approach to gentling a wild Mustang?
Absolutely. So the foundation of my approach is a basically vaquero horsemanship perspective of
Okay.
making the wrong thing easy, the right thing, I'm sorry, making the right thing easy and the wrong thing difficult, and rewarding
Right.
the slightest try. And
Mhm.
I really try to work with the horse and not just at the horse, and
Mhm.
establish two-way communication. um so as far as techniques, I use many different techniques, some being pressure release based, some being shaping, some being positive reinforcement, some being targeting.
Mhm.
But it's not about putting the technique on the horse like a hat. It's about listening to the horse and getting to know them, and trying to figure out what's going to work for them.
Okay. So could you give us some examples of some difficult horses you've worked with and what presented and how you work through those issues?
We got several horses that actually we were sent um, through a collaboration with Skydog Sanctuary,
Mhm.
that came from auction, that had all been through the ringer. They went to auction, they went to the kill pen, and they all had previous handling. One of them jumped out of a 7-foot tall pen in our first session together. So that
Oh
was
my.
yeah. And it's just, they have all, and it was just so sad, because we've started peeling back the layers, and we've been peeling back the layers for a while now. And they are such nice horses. It's just they had just enough handling to make them hate people.
Yeah.
And so that's been really tough. So, and then, one of them was never one to lash out at people, but she would um stand there and shake, just stand and shake and crack, or you would just walk in the pen and she was stressing out and crashing, and
Oh,
and it's just been really difficult and for her. And all of them, and there have been others with other sort of behavioral quirks, and I've been kicked at, and because they just are a whole different level than the ones that are unhandled, like truly unhandled. And so there you're now it's not starting at ground zero, you're starting at -4.
Mhm.
Having to first help them feel safe, having to then undo what somebody else has done and show them that no, actually, we don't all suck, and I'm not
Mhm.
here to hurt you. And that has looked um, all different ways for these different horses. Um, for the mare that was just shaking and sweating, one of it was finding a big enough pen to work her in to where she was under threshold. So she could get far enough away from me that she could feel safe, but
Right,
not
not
so far
constant
away.
pressure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not so far away that, there wasn't going to be any meaningful interaction. And
Mhm.
then I had Mustang Matt here last spring from Montana. And what I really appreciate about him is his ability to help the horse and make finding the right answer, the answer we're looking for, and the answer we're hoping for the horse to find, really easy and really obvious.
Uh-huh.
And part of that has been techniques, part of that has been my timing, part of that has been just, set up and the kinds and sizes of gentling pens that we have. And that was hugely helpful in bringing along these more troubled horses.
How big a
Um,
pen?
I have a gentling pen that's square that I don't use as much anymore. It's 20 by 20.
Mhm.
I have the round pen that I'm using right now. The most is about 25 by 25.
Okay.
Um, and it's 8 foot tall. Um, and that has been, I have found that pen works the best. They can't corner themselves, they can get some distance, but there's also not gonna be, they're not so far away from me that I can't do anything.
Right.
Um, I use, and I mean, they were, none of these horses were gonna be open for a while to any kind of positive reinforcements of food rewards and that kind of thing. So it was
Yeah.
a lot of shaping, a lot of pressure release
Mhm.
with them, getting them used to um, just, you know, facing me, getting them used to me approaching, getting them used to me carrying an object, be that a trekking stick, be that a rope.
Mhm.
Um, and, getting then, gradually getting some touches. The mare that jumped out of the pen, um, she came around pretty quickly because she is the kind of horse that she's like, you know what, I think I'm okay.
Mhm.
But if I decide that you're not okay, I'm going to hurt you. And so once we had established that, there were clear rules of communication and sort of clear boundaries of, I'd like for you to stand there and look at me. I'd like for you to, face me. And then I'm gonna approach within what you can handle. She was like, yeah, I think I can work with this, because
Mhm.
she had a say, she had some control in the matter, and she knew that, the rules weren't going to change on her.
Mhm.
And she had an out. I mean, that is a big, big, big thing for me, is to, they need to learn that there's always, always, always a right answer, you know?
Mhm.
So if you start looking for answers rather than looking for physically a way out, in the sense of running away or jumping out or
Right.
kicking or something like that, there is always a right answer. So if you're just going to go hunt for that right answer, you're going to be fine.
Mhm.
And so pretty quickly, I had her haltered. And then, she came around to being touched. She came around to leading. She had baggage around objects, sticks and whips and what have you. And I was like, well, that's not going to work, because my philosophy is that I want these horses to be a friend of mine calls it able to take a joke, you know, to where you can treat them like a quote unquote normal horse, a domestic horse, where you don't have to worry about, oh, well, you can't, you know, you can't bring out this object, and you can't, you know, you can't talk in a loud voice, and you can't do this and you can't do that. I'm like, honey, there's gonna be,
Mhm.
you know, there's gonna be a lunge whip, there's gonna be, you know, some kind of something that looks like a whip in your life, you know, that doesn't mean that somebody is gonna come at you.
Yeah.
But you can't just pop up on your hind legs every time you see one. So that's been a really, really fun one to work through. And at the same time, she is a very confrontational, sort of a very dominant type mare.
Mhm.
So backing up, yielding her shoulders was not in her, you know, sort of in her mind of how this was all going to work. So that was a, you know, really, really tough one. There were some really intense moments because this man had been taught to fight. That's how she had gotten rid of people, is by being
Yeah.
really, really extreme. And you know, sort of me having to stand my ground when I thought for sure I was going to get run over. And then, you know, bringing her back down to where she was in a learning frame of mind, and I could break things down to, okay, so what is sort of the smallest common denominator? You know, what can we find that's going in the direction that I'm looking for, that is also, you know, something that you are capable of giving at this point? And then we built on that. And then once she
Right.
realized that, oh, well, you know, I just need to take a step back and it's all going to be fine, or I just need to, you know, yield my shoulder, then she was fine.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, but that sort of, y- you know, having to work through that sort of intense disdain for being asked anything or specific objects, that was a tough one. That
Yeah.
was a tough one.
I think one thing that people who don't have a long history of working with horses tend to not understand is that you can shape negative, dangerous behaviors just as easily as you
Oh,
can shape
absolutely.
positive behaviors. And that just enough handling to make a horse hate people is something that happens with wild horses. If they just sit around and aren't interacted with, they figure out that they don't have to interact with people.
And that is absolutely true. And not just do they figure out they don't have to. I mean, that even happens with really well-meaning people that just say, even try to do this in too big of a pen, just as an example, you know. And every time the horse is like, yeah, I'd rather not do this, it just walks away, and that's the end of that.
Yeah.
So that happens too. But here you have a wild horse that's not just sort of on the fence about this, the whole deal, because it doesn't know, and maybe because, you know, it remembers that being put, you know, being put in a chute and like freeze branded and vaccinated wasn't a whole lot of fun. But now you have an animal that has um learned to hate people. I mean, it's one thing to have a feral dog, and it's another thing to have a feral dog that's been, you know, put in a box and had kids or whoever throw sticks at them. You know, that is entirely different. um you know, because these horses now have a reason to say, yeah, you know, you guys are
Mhm.
trouble, I don't want to.
Yeah.
And they learn how to get away from it, you know, whether they need to jump out, whether they need to turn their butt to you, whether they need to bluff charge, you know. So they are super, super quick. And that is one thing with Mustangs, is because they are so smart, because they
Mhm.
are so tuned into their environment, because they've had to be.
Yeah.
They are not the same kind of forgiving. Like, I mean, being forgiving and being able to sort of fill in for us, and being able to say, okay, well, you know, what do they mean here? I'm trying to figure out what you want from me. That has to be taught. I mean, a
Mhm.
Mustang in the beginning, they're out to protect themselves.
Yeah.
And so that's where it's our job to help them figure out that it feels good to interact with us, and make it their idea that that's, you know, that's what they should be doing.
Yeah.
And oh, absolutely, you're absolutely right. So quote unquote negative behaviors, undesirable behaviors, that they learn that just fast. They do.
Yeah. Do you have a typical timeline for gentling?
Yes and no. I mean, there's a lot of, I mean, that's the one thing about the Mustang is that they're sort of all over the map,
Yes.
size, shape, personality, anything. But if I get one directly from, BLM or Forest Service that has, the bare minimum of handling and ideally hasn't been shipped, to 4 different holding facilities because that can add additional stress.
Mhm.
I would say a normal horse, 6 weeks to 2 months. And and because what I found is, and a lot of people, that do these competitions and what have you, um, do that much faster.
Mhm.
And that is totally fine. It's just for us, the setting is we have, several training horses that we rotate through. So everybody gets, a session a day, but not necessarily 4 and 5 sessions a day. And we also don't have just, this one horse that needs to be, loping circles in an arena for a show at the end of the days or 100 days or what have you. So another thing that I have found is, can I get a horse in 10 days or 2 weeks to sort of accept the halter and kind of sort of lead and let me go in there and very carefully pick up his feet and,
Mhm.
it'll kind of snorty and go into a trailer? Yes, yes, I can. Um, I have found that horses are going to be much more successful and people are going to be much happier if it's a horse that is relaxed and willing and a little bit more, well, not just desensitized, but also sort of relaxed and comfortable with people.
Yeah.
So I have found that sort of 6 weeks to 2 months, a average, not super in your pocket, but not super reactive Mustang will come around to saying, you know what, this is a pretty good gig. I get brushed and, I get scratched and, oh, look, there's the person again, let me turn towards you and you can come over here and pick up, put the halter on. And then, we'll walk anywhere you want to walk. And, they'll stand tight patiently and they are pretty well adjusted. They are the kind of horse that, you can send home, and whether it goes to a private facility or a boarding facility, they are likely to do pretty well. And we do a lot of what I call aftercare, in the sense that I tell all of my adopters, hey, you have any issues, you call me.
Yeah.
And so we've had really, really good luck with that. It took me a while to figure out sort of what our client base, what our adopter base is, what that looks like, and what sort of on average, their skill level is, what their expectations are. And so we try to really cater to that and make sure that we get these horses pretty user friendly, so to speak.
Right.
Because I have found, and again, this is a generalization, and we have, all sorts of different, skill levels and all sorts of different adopters. But on average, a lot of people are not what I would call super, super handy. They need a horse that is forgiving, if they put,
Yeah.
if it takes them 5 minutes to put the halter on, it'll still stand there. If they trip on a rock, the horse is not going to jump out of its pen. If their timing is a little bit off, the horse is not going to see that as an excuse to just leave.
Right.
Um, so horses that are, sort of, um, willing to cut you a little bit of slack.
Right.
Um, and so that's what we try to get our horses ready for. And one of the big things too is stranger danger. I am fortunate now that we have some really amazing volunteers. And so as soon as a horse is, does the basics for me and is safe enough to handle for me, that I don't think there's going to be a major issue with somebody else, I introduce them to new people and then let the volunteers handle and work with these horses, so that by the time the doctor comes around, that horse has already met 3, 4, 5 different people, and that has made a huge difference.
Yeah. Okay. So you've done tip training,
Mhm.
which is a timeline. Have you done makeovers or
I
challenges?
have not. I have
Okay.
not. That has just never been my focus.
Okay. So when you're doing a tip train, which roughly is a 3-month deadline, correct?
Mhm. Yep.
What, if anything, do you do differently if you're tip training versus just a private person adopted a horse and
Nothing. Nothing.
okay.
Um, I'm not gonna push a horse any harder. I'm not gonna. I mean, I'm there for the horse. I mean, tip in itself, especially with the way that feed prices and everything else has been going, fuel prices, all of that. It's not what I would consider a huge money maker, and it's not what we're in it
Yeah.
for. I'm in it for the horse, and so if I can get, I mean, the only way to really make any kind of profit with tip is to get the horse ready in a month. And you know what?
Yeah.
If that horse can be ethically ready in a month,
Mhm.
I'm all for it. But if it can't be, I'm not gonna send it back, and I'm not gonna put it through hell just to get it there.
Right.
Because for me, it's really, really important, and we have had really good luck with that, is with actually getting to know the horse and then
Mhm.
handpicking an adopter for them.
Mhm.
And, I can't do that in 3 days. I
Yeah.
can't in 3 days really have a good, or even 2 weeks, necessarily have a really good reading on a horse and say, I mean, I'm not saying you can't, I can't. I'm sure some
Yeah.
people can. I'm doing what works for me.
Right.
Um, I want to be able to get a reading on the horse, get to know the horse, get to see what the horse does under pressure, get to see what the horse likes, what the horse doesn't like. And then sort of, and obviously at that time I'm posting about the horse, and I'm kind of letting people get familiar with the horse. But at the same time, I'm not gonna let you, just because you're like, oh, well, I've been looking for a 15 hand black mare. Well, that's nice, but let's make sure that, what's going on the inside of this horse is gonna work for you too.
Right.
So there's a lot of getting to know the horse, and then communicating with prospective adopters to make sure that this is hopefully a long-term fit, and not just,
Mhm.
oh, well, I've been, looking for one that, looks like that, for 6 months. I mean, people get to want what they want, and I'm absolutely in favor of that. At the same time, just because it looks like what you want doesn't mean it is.
Right.
And so I
Have
try to help guide them there a little bit if they let me.
okay. Have you had many horses that have been that easy that you have a gentle horse in a month? A reliably gentle horse?
Not many, not
Okay.
many. Like I said, if I was just doing one horse at a time and I was just standing out there with it all day long, possibly.
Yeah.
Um, but not many, because to me it's a huge, I mean, you're changing everything about that horse's world. You're having to change their mind. You're having to um make them think, make them do a 180 on absolutely everything it's known before.
Right.
Like, you don't think through pressure, you run from it.
Right.
You don't set foot in some kind of a, clinky dark metal box. You don't stand around on 3 legs while, some weird thing is messing with your fourth leg.
Yeah.
And and to really be comfortable and relaxed with that, and to stand there for grooming and not be super flinchy, and not be, a total pain to catch.
Mhm.
So again, people have different techniques, different expectations. Um, this is a timeline that I feel, on average works well for a lot of these guys.
Yeah. I'm not sure that the general public is aware that the horses that go to these makeover challenges and are doing these amazing things in 3 months aren't just being seen for a half hour a day. They're being seen for multiple training sessions every single day for 100 days. And some of them still don't make it. So I
Yep.
think that's an important distinction to make. Like you said, if you had all day with the horse, you might have a gentle horse in a month.
Yes, there is also, though, I think, and this is a separate conversation, but there is such a thing as too much of a good thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there is flooding, there
Yeah.
is, not knowing when to quit. And I mean, some of these horses are smart. If you put them in a situation where it's like, well, damned if you do and damned if you don't, then I just don't, because the outcome's the same. So, letting them win in the sense of letting them feel good about themselves and letting them feel like they mastered something, I feel like is super, super important, whether that is for a competition or whether that is for tip training or whether that is for gentling your own at home. I have actually found, and again, this is not gospel, this is just what works for us. There is a lot of magic in short sessions, 20-30 minutes.
Yeah.
Because if you're honest about yourself, how long can you focus for, like fully focused for real? And, and also
They need time to process.
they need time to process. And also I want to leave what I call some fuel in the tank. I want that horse to leave the session and go, well, that was it. I was having fun. Why are you leaving?
Yeah.
And not go, oh my gosh, I'm sweating, everything hurts. Don't ever come back. I want them, I always tell people, usually this works well with math. It doesn't work on everybody, but it works on most people. I ask people, like, were you good at math? No. Did you like math? No. So if you had a really good day and you solved that math problem in like 15 minutes flat, and you're like, man, look at me go. And your teacher says, oh man, good job, Sally. So why don't you stay 2 hours longer because you did such a good job? You are never going to do that again, ever.
Yeah.
And so I try to make it so that they can go, man, that was all. I'm amazing because I did it, and then I let them, sit there and, feel good about themselves, and I'll come back to it
Mhm.
and try to get it a little bit better every time, and not say, okay, well, you come over here and you're getting in that trailer today. I also don't have to.
Yeah.
And so I give myself the luxury, and for my, clients that send their horses here for gentling, I do them the favor that we do a lot with the horse's awareness and with the horse's mind, just watching their threshold, watching where they really are. And, if I have a horse that is like super on the fence about me just even standing next to them, or about sort of me bending down, like changing shape weirds these horses out. Like a lot of horses don't understand the concept of arms and legs. They find that very strange, that we have,
Yeah.
hands and arms, and
Yeah.
that we like look totally different when we bend down to pick up their feet. That really weirds them out. And so I can get a horse comfortable with all that and not have to feel like they have to pick up their feet in the first 5 days. I have a little guy here. He is amazing. He leads. He's not afraid of the trailer. He's really easy to catch, but he is super weirded out about particularly me being on his right side and me walking towards his butt, and then me bending down towards the foot. And so I can break that down for him in a way that he can understand, while also working on the things that he likes. Like he likes going for walks and he likes crossing obstacles, and that gives us, when we can build a relationship and build trust and build softness and work on body control, and let him, get used to tying while he's getting over some of those insecurities, because they go together. We build our relationship and strengthen our relationship in these other areas, while we're sort of gradually getting him used to the idea of, okay, this is gonna eventually become picking up feet, but
Right.
when you're mentally ready.
Right. Okay. Can you tell us a little bit about your future plans and goals, both personally as a Mustang trainer and as part of your organization, the Mustang Outreach?
Well, absolutely. I mean, personally, I'm bringing along this now coming 3-year-old to be the next pack and then riding horse.
The little
So
Spitfire.
the little Spitfire, the little Spitfire, I call her my baby dragon. She's graduated from dragon egg to the baby dragon now. She's got she's got dragon ears, and when she has really got an opinion about things, she does look like she's got flames coming out of her nose, and that's the kind of dad that I like. Um, so, getting her going, bringing her along, obviously with time, I mean, she's going to be 3 this year. I'm going to pack her lightly. I don't know if I'm going to ride her. I might put, a handful of 10-minute rides at a walk on her. I'm
Yeah.
really sort of very slow and conservative with starting. She's going to be ground driving. She's going to be dragging logs, doing all kinds of weird things, tagging along on rides and just seeing the world. So that's my personal project, is getting her going. And then with the idea that hopefully in a few years, she's going to be my first ever bridle horse. That's always something that I've
Wow.
wanted to develop. And I have things to learn to make that happen. But I think that she and I can figure that out. And this horse does not cut me any slack. And as much as that's annoying sometimes, I really, really appreciate that. So anything that we do together, I'm going to have to earn. So
Yeah.
that's something that I look forward to. What I also want to do for me personally is continue to learn, go to clinics, bring trainers here, so that I keep growing,
Who
you
are
know.
you learning from?
Um, right now, I have been listening to Warwick Schiller a lot, the Warwick
Mhm.
Schiller podcast.
Yeah.
That's been, really wonderful just for sort of, ideas and mindset type things. I respect Mustang Matt up in Montana a lot,
Mhm.
because I've had him here, and what I have seen is that he has a really, really intuitive way of being around these horses,
Uh-huh.
and he communicates so effectively, and his timing is so good that he can get a message across to a horse without great big fireworks necessarily
Mhm.
in 20, 30 minutes that I would have thought takes, 2, 3 weeks of, sort of gently broaching the
Yeah.
subject to them. And I appreciate that, because what I appreciate is not letting horses live in fear,
Yeah.
because while we're over there tiptoeing around and taking our sweet time, this horse is afraid. And so
Yeah.
as the quicker, without harming the horse, without getting myself hurt, but the quicker I can get this horse to understand how this all works and how not to be afraid and how to feel comfortable, the better for everybody.
Right.
So he has been sort of a huge, resource to, inspire my training.
Mhm.
I follow, several trainers on social media, and you just kind of Amy Skinner is one of them, that is not necessarily primarily a Mustang person,
Yeah.
but just or Lee Williams. You've talked to Lee Williams, like he's got all the
Mhm.
all the fun tools.
Yeah.
And it's just, little things that you glean, just, a little, just a thought, or, a technique, or, something about your timing, all these
Yeah.
different. So I try to really keep an ear on the ground for, what's out there, and to be open to learning things from, all different sides and sources, Mustangs or not, Western riding or not, and to just work on myself. I mean, that is another thing that I do too, is I work out every day, I meditate every day, and I try to get enough sleep. I try to eat healthy, because I show up better.
Right.
And I think that makes a huge difference. And for our organization, and then obviously hopefully lots of pack trips this summer. That's what I love to do, and it's a cool way to sort of show these pictures to people and say, hey, look what the Mustangs do, and people really just appreciate that.
Yeah.
um so what you can do, basically showing what you can do with a Mustang once you've put in the time and you've put in the work, and that's kind of what those pack trips are partially all about too.
Yeah.
um And then for the organization, we just ordered custom panels out of Oklahoma. So we're finally going to be able to set up doctoring shoot. So I'm excited for that.
Ah,
To more quickly help a horse that needs, say, medical attention, or
right.
if something has a halter on that is too tight and it needs to come up,
Yes.
or somebody wants a halter on a horse that's not quite ready to just walk over there and put one on, we can halter them. Basic doctoring. So that's something that I am super, super excited for. There are some plans in the works that I'm not quite ready to talk about yet, so I won't.
Okay.
But
But more goals. More goals.
yeah, and I mean, certain things just move and operate slowly, and I've learned to kind of,
Yeah.
bite my tongue and just be patient. But no, I'm gonna be I'm finally coming to terms with the fact that it is now 2023, and so we're gonna be scheduling this year's workshops, and I'm really excited. I've spent the past couple of days on the phone with some other professionals about possibly coming together to offer some different types of workshops that are not just horsemanship and gentling, but also sort of going towards mindfulness and
I like that.
developing greater empathy too, but really self and other awareness. How
Exactly.
do
Yeah.
I pay attention to myself? How do I pay attention to the horse in front of me? Because a lot of traditional horsemanship, and I'm not downing anything or anybody here, but a lot of it is very technique based. It's cookie cutter. You do this, you do this, you do this, and the clinician doesn't do that, but the students learn that. And so, people are training at horses and they're doing things at horses, but they're not really reading the responses that they're getting. They're not reading their audience. So teaching
Right.
people to read their horse, but also teaching people to become self-aware. What is my body doing? Am I even breathing? What is
Mhm.
my state of mind and how is that affecting what I'm doing here today? I think that no matter whether you're gentling Mustangs or you're showing dressage, that is incredibly important. So, and also any which kind of holistic approaches, your mental and physical health play a role in your horsemanship.
Mhm.
Your horse's mental and physical health plays a role in its training, like if they're hungry all the time, if they're not happy, if they don't have enough space, if they don't have any friends, if they don't, if they have ulcers, if their back hurts, they're not going to show up for you the way you want them to,
Right.
so I believe that that's absolutely, a holistic thing. And I have professionals that I work with that are friends of mine, adopters of mine, and other connections that we're talking about possibly coming together and offering those kinds of things.
Nice. So if listeners are hearing this and their ears are perking up, they're interested like I am, how do they learn about these things when they are ready to be announced?
We have social media accounts on Facebook and Instagram. Just look up Wild Horse Outreach and Advocacy, or our website, wildhorseoutreach.org. And I'll be perfectly honest, I am totally always happy for people to just contact me, email me through the website or send me a message on social
Mhm.
media. It may take me a couple of days to respond because there are only so many of us and only so many hours
Yeah.
in the day. But if somebody has questions and they don't see it posted yet, or they can't find it, or they have a question that they didn't hear addressed, or they're like, well, you know would you do a clinic or a workshop about this? Just ask. Absolutely.
Okay, great. And I
So
will link those the website and the social media sites in the show notes below.
that works.
Do you
Super.
have any final words of advice for people who are thinking of adopting a wild Mustang?
Yes. I tell people to sort of, when putting together sort of their perfect Mustang ideas, I want them to be honest with themselves. Um, and sort of start from the inside out with that horse. And again, everybody gets to want what they want. If it needs to be a 16-hand blue roan with one blue eye, I am fully supportive of that. It just may take you a hot minute to find that horse.
Yeah.
But what I find more important for the long-term success, because it's not just about somehow placing Mustangs, somehow getting horses out of holding. It's about long-term happiness, about getting these horses gentle to where they can get medical care, to where they don't have to be afraid. So what I ask of people and ask of my clients, ask of my adopters, be honest with yourself. What is your comfort zone? How much time do you have? How much money do you have to get help, and who are some resources available to you if you need that? If you find that you're in it over your head, who can you call for help? And are you able to pay for training? Are you able to pay for a chiropractor or a vet if it turns out that your horse has back pain or some kind of old injury from living in the wild?
Yeah.
What are your goals? Do you just want something that, you can pet and tool around in the arena a little bit? Do you want to trail ride? Do you want to event? Do you want to chase cows? What do
Mhm.
you want to do? And what kind of horse, like, do you like spunky, or do you like really, really calm? Are you very confident, or do you need a horse that kind of holds your hand? So all of these questions, and then obviously, especially if you're gonna, do any like long, hard miles, if you're gonna do any kind of showing, you need a horse that is physically up to that. So, what kind of build and size is it gonna take? And, it's also got to be said that living in the wild is hard living. Being gathered is hard. Being processed at a facility is hard. Some of these horses have arthritis. Some of them have old injuries. Some of them have, a kink in their neck or something out in their back, and that needs to be addressed before they're gonna be able to show up for you. And so I just ask people to really be honest with themselves about what they're willing and able to put in. How much time are you willing to commit? Can you be consistent? Can you do it yourself, or do you need to get one that's gentle? Or do you even need to look for one that's saddle broke? None of that is wrong. It's just,
Right.
you got to be honest with yourself.
Right.
And then again, be very, very honest about what do you need from the inside of the horse, sort of temperament, personality, being able to get along with other horses if you already have horses. And then, obviously, size confirmation. And then we get to sort of what I call sort of the want things, like, okay, how old do you want it to be? Do you want it to be a mare or a gelding? Do you want it, what color do you want it to be? But those to me are not quite as important as these questions about personality and
Right.
sort of what goals you have for the horse.
Yeah.
That is something that I feel like we owe to them before we make what's hopefully going to be a 25, 30-year commitment to this horse.
Right. Okay. Well, Stefanie, thank you very much for your time. And
My pleasure.
I hope we get to talk again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.